Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of APAC Dialogue. We have with us Sudhir Kunder, Country Manager of DE-CIX in India, and he will be talking about the offerings from one of India's premier internet exchanges, a solution that he has for various ISPs, the OTTs, and the CDNs, and also their business roadmap ahead. So, may I start? Would request Sudhir to give a brief introduction and then take us through an update on the portfolio of solutions and offerings that DE-CIX currently has for India.
Thank you very much. Good evening, and first of all, thanks for having me over. It's been a pleasure to reconnect with your team after probably a year's time, and I hope things have been well for you as it has been for the rest of India as well. So, just to give you a brief introduction, as we call ourselves, Dorsey Commercial Internet Exchange, which means DE-CIX. DE-CIX typically is completing about 5 odd years here in India now, and in these 5 years, the last 3 years have been a scintillating journey for us, and we've typically seen the organization become a rocket ship from those early days to now, when DE-CIX India happens to be the premier interconnection platform serving customers in India and SAARC countries primarily, and global customers also on the other side. So we have a unique proposition, as everybody knows, which means a single access port gives access to internet exchange as well as cloud exchange. And very soon we'll be launching Microsoft Azure peering services, which will be one of the finest services that the Indian enterprises would look forward to, and the relevance would be in the range of about 80 to 90% of customers, both for telcos as well as for ISPs.
Okay, so can you elaborate a little more on the cloud exchange part? And under cloud exchange, what are the offerings specifically for enterprises? What are those offerings?
So, when we say cloud exchange, as I said, the unique proposition is that the investment in infrastructure from the buyer side is only one, whether it is a telco or whether it is an enterprise or a data center. These organizations will necessarily have to take one access port across which, as I said, peering comes through the same access port. And then you have the cloud exchange, which means direct cloud, access to AWS, Azure, Oracle, and Google. When we talk about these four cloud service providers, we're talking about primarily 90% of the Indian cloud space. And the agility with which you will be able to get multi-cloud ideas implemented in your location, or the pace at which you can on-ramp on any one of these cloud service providers without the threat of external internet. Because ultimately this method helps you have a secure gateway between your CSP and the port that you subscribe to. As a result of which, we can give you one port with all four CSPs, or suppose if you're a test and dev kind of an organization, you will have AWS and Azure at various cuts from 50 meg to 1 gig or 10 gig, depending upon how you do it. So that's the unique proposition.
So here, typically, the scenario for a typical large enterprise now is they will have multi-clouds. So there will be, as you mentioned, maybe certain applications on Azure, some will be on AWS, there might be Google or something.
Sure.
Something can be on a private cloud.
Sure.
Some applications might be on the edge,
Sure.
and then they might have an underlying fabric like a Nutanix or something. So in that sort of scenario, the unique proposition that you are talking about and the seamless migration between applications
Sure.
from one cloud to another, so that everything works seamlessly. How do you achieve that?
So that is what I said. We basically are infrastructure providers. So when you have a use case which are in the realms of what you said and beyond. Suppose, for example, your organization today is deploying edge data centers. So one of the key critical components of having edge data center and future-looking services that will come is the use of 5G, IoT, and AI. So when you have these three things culminating near the edge, so the whole interconnection services that we bring to the play will be able to get you the use case into reality and the business case into fructification. One, two, as you said, today it is very difficult for an organization, and at a CIO level it becomes a great task for him to have multiple discussions, multiple vendors, multiple suppliers to talk to in his digital transformation journey. As against that, when you have somebody like DE-CIX available with you, you are in a position to be able to exploit the maximum resources within your organization with the access port that we have, wherein we give you flexibility, scalability, reliability, and the robustness that any organization of international repute today looks at. As I speak to you, I can talk to you about a lot many uh, multinational automobile companies. A hint is based out of Bangalore, who are typically looking at Microsoft Azure peering services, uh, Microsoft Azure peering services at 10G levels. So that's the kind of ease of doing business we bring to the table as of now. This will not only help them get better control on their infrastructure, but will also help them bring down their latencies by 90%. And by virtue of that, their trouble tickets come down by 50%.
Okay. So you have these sort of use cases already. Just on the as long as we remain on the cloud exchange
Sure.
part.
This is a part of
So specifically for India, how many customers you have and what sort of domains these verticals these
So,
customers are coming from?
I can actually keep mentioning names till this evening goes through. But just to give you an example, we have SMEs, SMBs, enterprises, as well as telco, who is now serving the customers at their end because they have huge width and depth of coverage on their fiber and copper network. As a result of which, what is happening today is for them it becomes a super value addition. So a very leading telco in India, which is one of the foremost ones and very reputed brand, has been white labeling our services under a different name. So our product typically is a white labelable product. So you can, as a data center provider, build it as a part of your solution. So if I put all my direct customers and my indirect customers and the system integrators put together, talking about realms of about 350, 400 customers in the last 1 year, 8 months, 1 year, 10 months of active service offerings.
I will come to that part later. May I specifically ask you go to market?
Sure.
So this is as far as a cloud exchange is
Correct.
concerned. As an internet exchange provider, which has been your initial forte, if I may say,
Correct.
and there you are addressing the ISPs themselves, the telcos,
Correct.
then the OTTs, the CDNs,
Correct.
and so.
Correct.
What are those solutions and services that comes
So
under
typically
internet
what a interconnection platform like us does is gives you the ability to offload 90%. Like for Bombay, we have 92% as recorded evidence of data that gets offloaded from your normal run-up, as we call it, telco grade bandwidth to the exchange, as a result of which you have huge optimization on your cost, number one, which is a major factor today. But not only that, the latencies also come down significantly. So you have better security because ultimately it is all within the data center domain. And most importantly, the scalability and the robustness that we bring to the table by virtue of being one of the finest operators who operate only out of the data center environment. We do not create POPs outside the data center. As a result of which, we have unparalleled uptimes, and the customers typically not only get great service offerings, but the cost that they are able to save by onboarding with us are intelligently deployed into their own network transformation, and wise investments get done without bothering about capex because they save us loads of money at one end, and that redeployment happens here. And since we are somebody who have always grown with the thought of ease of doing business, we've seen to it that our customers are always taken care as a life cycle management concept. where customer always comes first, whether it is a pre-sales discussion, whether it is a sales, or after him getting on board, he quickly needs to upgrade as well. So in this entire journey of getting himself profitable and more agile in the market, we are with him together on an end-to-end basis.
Okay. So one point you mentioned when you about the uptime you are mentioning, the reason is because you have your own data center that you.
We operate out of only data centers. There might be operators who are having POPs outside the data center, which again becomes difficult for you to maintain uptimes. For us, we are housed only in data centers.
So what is the model? Are those data centers your own? How many are there?
We don't.
Or do you work with the third party
Yeah.
data center?
So you can name any data center of global repute and we are there with them. So just as you have their customers onboarded there, we also have our interconnection platform hosted in their data center. So we are tenants, if you have to say so specifically, but being a key catalyst in their data center makes it as a critical magnet for them to approach not only the large telcos, OTTs, hyperscalers, and such large customers, but also the ISPs. So for them, it becomes one consolidated offering because of us that they can do.
So how about competing against, say, NIXI will be the government side, the largest internet exchange. So how about those sort of competition?
Well, I have a little bit of a different take when it comes to our industry, and I feel that we are all collaborators in this journey of making internet an easily accessible service offering for the country as such. But every organization has their own go-to-market. They have their own setups that they run in their own wisdom. So while full marks to what they've been doing in the market, I can only speak for myself that in the last 3 years we've not only become India number one, but we become APAC number one in Bombay. And as and when possible, we do a lot of contribution to the industry knowledge per se. So if you go on DE-CIX.net, for example, there is a lot of research that the organization does on self-funded money, which we then eventually on our own or with the government also as a JV project, and then we put it up for open source. So there are multiple white papers that we put. So similarly in India also, we do a lot many symposiums where the technical community is given an understanding of how they can get best bang for the buck when they look at peering as a service, because there is a lot of education that needs to be done.
So one thing which I would like to understand here is you mentioned about the internet, the competition part. Yes, I can understand, but white labeling was one thing. So that go-to-market question earlier. So as you mentioned, you will be working with the third-party data centers. You are asking system integrators or even the telcos to white label some of your services and offerings. So specifically for both internet exchange and cloud exchange, what are the rationale behind your go-to-market strategy, and what are the initiatives that you follow?
So as I said, the rationale has been very clear that we make this service an easy to approach and use, and that not now it stems from the fact that the formation of DE-CIX typically happened out of a small post office in Germany 26 years back when internet also got formed. So we just carry forward the same ethos and the understanding that whether it is cloud exchange, whether it is internet exchange, the whole idea beyond is looking above and beyond the normal business sense that it makes to be in a country. And that is the reason why you see a lot of SAARC countries are now looking at DE-CIX India for onboarding with us, and we've been successfully able to help them also in their endeavors to make internet an easily accessible service offering in their countries.
So you from DE-CIX India only you target these different SAARC.
Yeah, see, when you do well, you automatically become a magnet for the surrounding areas, and rather than use the word targeting, I say we became magnets, and we started getting those inquiries coming our way now. So just like I said, if there is any international company today which is into data center deployment, or whether it is a global IT ITITES organization, or whether it is a gaming company or a hyperscaler. One of the decision makings that they have at their end as a must-have block is to see whether the particular data center has got the DE-CIX deployment in their premises or not. So it always happens over a period of time. As you do well, you then become a must-have kind of an offering for you.
Okay. And another thing you mentioned earlier, and which is obvious, 5G is one, IoT or AI. Uh, how, in terms of the large scale deployment, will obviously mean newer applications, commercial applications coming on these platforms, and how that will catalyze increasing usage,
That's a
and how that will.
that's a very sharp and an intelligent question, you see, because till now what we've seen is there has been a lot of hype around a lot of stuff that happened in India, but when it came to actual fruitification of it, we didn't see much. And even monetizing the investments that were made by those organizations, large telcos, you know the story, so I wouldn't want to go on that part. But 5G, I think, is a different proposition because this is where you will have multiple service offerings which are already there in the market globally, which by virtue of not having legacy infrastructure on the enterprise side, there is a lot of scope that we have where we can see those business cases or those cases where there is an actual usage to monetization plan already ready in place. So you can say you have as a standalone offering, it might give only X amount of output, but when you marry that 5G, which initially becomes the heart of the operation, your hands is the IoT, and AI becomes the brain. But when you have this digital triangle, as we call it, then whether it is AR, VR for manufacturing and distribution, healthcare, pharma, logistics, it can be the retail industry, it can be the tourism industry for me to give a seamless offering to my customers and give them that virtual reality tour, because of which then they make a large chunk of booking with me. So multiple use cases will come into play as it was not possible earlier by virtue of many things that these three things as a culmination can put into.
So how that will impact in the growth of DE-CIX business?
So DE-CIX, as I said, has already built its reputation in the market as being a catalyst. And for all these three to meet at one place, you need to have an interconnection platform. So there is no point in you being, suppose, in Manesar, and your data coming all the way up to, say, heart of Delhi here. So if you have edge deployments happening out there and you have small interconnection platforms like us being set up at those edge locations, the entire data of your intelligent car is pumped over there and it goes back.
And there is no latency.
So it's typically latency driven. So I can talk about connected cars. For that matter, it can also be a lot of industrial deployments that you are today making. So manufacturing and distribution will have multiple such use cases where your factory is no longer a factory. Your factory is actually not machines, but a deployment of various resources which are handled by own party, second party, and third party. And all this culmination can happen when you have an interconnection platform sitting for you to get all those things at the same place and then get back into action.
That's interesting. So, just tell me, in terms of DE-CIX India, infrastructure-wise, I mean infrastructure-wise, geographically as well as in terms of centers, and so what is your spread across?
So we are currently across 4 metros in India: Mumbai, Delhi, Kolkata, and Chennai. Mumbai happens to be the hub, as we have seen. So we have 9 data centers out there in Mumbai. Kolkata has 1 as of now. Chennai, we have 2. And Delhi, we have 4. So these are the current data centers where we operate. And we have a growth plan in the current annual operating plan, which talks about going above and beyond these to 5 additional locations spread across these 4 metros. And maybe in the next 8 to 10 months, we should be available in Hyderabad and Bangalore as well.
What about, and this especially got accelerated during these last couple of COVID years, lot of enterprise applications because people move to smaller locations, smaller cities, and they are working from there. So ultimately, a lot of enterprise applications are now being deployed remotely, and the work. So there is a bandwidth constraint or challenge, I might say. So, and increasingly in this scenario. So, how are you helping in terms of when you are talking about not just tier two, maybe tier three, tier four kind of locations also?
So this is a very wide question, actually, to be speaking, and I feel that we've been able to do our own small bit in this market because if you look at my customer base, which is openly put up on my website, when I say Bombay is becoming number one in terms of from appearing DB verifiable number of 450 odd customers, that does not mean that all 450 are within the city of Mumbai. So we have organizations which have come to us right from Satara, Kolhapur, Sangli, or for that matter Calcutta, Noida, when these locations were not developing as they have developed. So when you have somebody who is growing on a rampant scale, there are chances of hits and misses. But when you do a very steady, measured kind of deployments, you see that the chances, because you are playing with somebody's business by doing that. So we are very discerning when it comes to our deployments, but our quality of service typically has ensured that people not only in the immediate vicinity, but also from faraway locations come, and that is where our ease of doing business help them, because we help them onboard via the B2B, the NLDs as it is called, by virtue of getting into discussions with our colleagues in the telco industry and educating them that this business cannot be looked at as any standard ISP business. As a result of which, if I have to tell you, I upgraded about 2,800 gigs, which is 2.8 terabits in the last 12 months. Many of my telco colleagues would have done humongous business, isn't it? So it's always a win-win situation.
And what about what we still see, the quality of the bandwidth?
Right.
If we mention in terms of the uniformity across the country is still not there. There's a lot of in some places problems. Then there are a lot of disruptions. Still, those things have improved. So, what are your suggestions, or I would say rather antidotes to improve the uniformity and quality of bandwidth?
One size can't fit all. That's how it is. But from a suggestion standpoint, and it's difficult to regulate a business in a free market economy like ours. But it's only our responsibility as ecosystem players to whatever little bit extent we can to educate those guys who are eventually going to be giving service to last mile consumers like you and me, is that every time cost cutting doesn't make any sense. I see a lot of non-standard, not actual peering services also being sold off or palmed off, if I have to say, under the garb of peering, just because there is a couple of rupees difference between world class service that somebody like us offers and the market. Eventually, the customer suffers, and this guy doesn't realize that there is a lot of churn. Although customer acquisition might be a different story, but ultimately everybody needs to be measured on active base. Which level of acumen, if they have, they'll understand. If not, then it's our responsibility to educate them, and which is why we've seen a lot of adoption coming in that way. And I come from that background where long time back we would educate the ISPs to do a network audit and not deploy those cheap, not Indian, hardware and equipment, which would conk off the moment there was a lightning. And those were the Cat 5 days. So from those days, you carry forward those kind of work ethics and ethos, and you bring them to the table even now, and educate people, let them understand that ultimately quality of service is what is more important. You give the right quality of service, customer is still willing to pay you 10% more than your competition. Because if not earlier, during the pandemic, you were very clear: food, clothing, shelter, and internet. And not necessarily in that, once you don't get food, it is okay, but internet nahi hoga, ghar pe nahi chalega. So that's how important we became.
That was a learning. From a DE-CIX perspective, between the internet exchange business and the cloud exchange business,
Right.
what will be the proportional contribution overall in the Indian context?
Well, I would say cloud is pretty nascent as of now because of the fact that as I said, it's about 18, 20 odd months that we've been actively pushing it in the market, and adoption in itself is taking some time because of various plans at a level where we can't influence beyond a point. So that contributes to about 15% as of now to the entire business. Otherwise, balance is all internet exchange.
And you talked about going forward having that Azure exchange.
No, it's called as Microsoft Azure Peering Services,
Okay.
which is nothing but O365, Microsoft Dynamic, collaboration, everything being available across a single access port.
But would that in some way contradict or cannibalize as a cloud exchange?
No, it is
provider?
totally
You are
different.
platform neutral.
Yes, but it is a different setup altogether. See, today in your office there would be, say, all of them put together about 100 desktop laptops, right? And on an active working day, you have 50 emails coming and going. Your background refresh, the pace at which you are doing your work, the kind of workloads that you have, the kind of bandwidth that it is being guzzling. And if you look at the entire math, you're talking about 16,70,000 emails per year, and humongous amount of workload that is happening. Plus, you do your Teams meeting without which we can't live today, and a lot of other stuff that happens as well in the background. All this is today at the mercy of open internet. While the same service offering comes to you on a port, just like peering port is coming, you will see that your latencies have come down by 90%. As a result of which, your IT guy is going to be happy because his trouble tickets will definitely come down by 50%. And your experience while you talk to your clients or internally within teams in various regions, while you're on teams, will be significantly different as compared to any other organization which doesn't use maps. So that's why I said that 9 out of 10 organizations will be wanting this when the knowledge about this service offering is available across India.
By when?
We're launching it in another month or so, upper max, and hopefully we go full blown from January, from a go-to market on a national basis, where you make the right kind of announcements and have the right kind of partners who are able to further our cause of ease of doing business as well.
And what has been the see, as you rightly mentioned, last 2 years, suddenly there has been a huge spurt on the internet, definitely due to because all the people were using consuming net even for their B2B kind of usage,
Correct.
for their office work usage also.
Right.
So pre-COVID days,
Right.
you had a infrastructure which was capable of handling a certain level of internet traffic. Suddenly jumped up. I can understand. Okay, maybe first few weeks teething problem, then you would have adjusted. Thing was, again, it definitely would not reach to the come down to pre-COVID level. But yeah, a little bit more hybrid model is now there. So how has been this transformation?
So interestingly, I think it was one of the just-in-time kind of. I don't want to sound pompous, but right decisions at the right time. We invested heavily in our infrastructure, and two colleagues of mine from the global infrastructure team took the last flight from Bombay before COVID hit. Otherwise, they would have been in India for quite a lot of time, and that was one of the main reasons why we were able to take this sudden surge, one, and meet that very nicely, but also took multiple surges that happened after that. Because see, what happened is your workloads immediately shifted from enterprise heavy locations to residence heavy locations. The telcos didn't have the backhaul because that is not how the network planning was done. So when the ISPs went to them saying that, boss, we want an upgrade, it took humongous amount of time for people to come back to say that when will I get it? And here demand was as if they want it as of day before yesterday, not even tomorrow, right? And that's where when we played a role, wherein we said we are here, ready to serve you, and I have sometimes against an SLA of 3 days and 5 days, given an upgrade to people in a couple of hours, because that was what was required for him to not only flourish or maintain his reputation, but to just survive, because that was the kind of demand that was coming. So, if I have to give you certain numbers, which typically happen so frequently change, so I just have to refer to it, and these are colossal numbers that I think no other organization would have witnessed. So, in the last 28 months, if I have to say so, these are the traffic analytics that I have been able to measure on a regular basis, which I do even otherwise. OTT and VOD demand has grown by 3074%, right, from February 20 to October end. Gaming traffic has gone up by 2608%, CDN by 1028, ISP by 1008%, social media and online media 1074%, posting by about 560%. So these are some colossal numbers that we're very happy to be serving in a place like India, where if I have to compare globally with other locations in terms of how those locations were able to take up the load or how they have grown in this industry specifically, I think we've done a fabulous job. And that's why I have no shame in telling people that currently this is a rocket ship that you're on.
So just one part here, the SLS, you talked about the technology part.
Right.
Business-wise, that's this sudden surge and the changes in SLAs. How did you manage that?
Well, the industry was so disorganized earlier, and there were so many people who were happy taking whenever it would come. But we always came from a systematic, process-driven thought process. So, irrespective of the fact whether you ask me or not, I would eventually tell you when you sign up with me that these are the days within which I will be able to provision my services. But for you to be able to take my service, you have other setups also which equally need to be agile, which is your point-to-point or NLDs and your cross-connect happening at the data center. But from DE-CIX alone standpoint, we have always met and exceeded the SLAs that we promised.
From a DE-CIX perspective, how much are you involved in working with the government?
Well, regulatory wise, or our own suggestion to the white papers that the government typically wants to build in seeing how they can make things better. So we have our own small contribution in the ways in which
I'm asking government as a customer.
Government as a customer, not much as of now, and we hope that we will be able to serve the nation in that fact also when the time comes.
And last question is, apart from you mentioned about Microsoft Azure those exchange services, other than that, if I may ask for the next 5 to 6 quarters, what are going to be the key focus areas? That can be new services, solutions, other expansion plans, or whatever.
Yeah, so if you have to look at it from a 6-quarter kind of roadmap, then as I said, getting to newer geographies and fortifying our presence within the existing geographies with intelligent and apt kind of deployments that we would want to. We don't want to be everywhere. We're very discerning enough to see where we want to be and where we don't want to be. So making those studied calls and also launching multiple these services that, as I said, once we are able to stabilize the Microsoft Azure peering services, we also intend to come up with an enterprise arm for the organization, where that set of team members would purely focus upon the enterprises and the system integrators right from day one. So that will be their key result area, so to speak. And then, of course, we have blackhauling, which is DDoS mitigation, and GlobePeer or a couple of other services which are in the make now, but it will definitely be available within the next 6 quarters if I have to see that realm of time frame. So